the year that we had bumped up to 900,000, that's when we're like, we really need to get our fees in line based off the complexity. So that was like a big change. And now we're just fine tuning that. So that year we changed it. It's like we changed every fee perfectly in accordance. We were just doing our best as we were going.
Welcome to the Seven Figure Accounting Podcast, where we talk about the rise of firm owners from and through the seven-figure mark. It's not an easy feat. And Nick, I want to talk about your story today. So for all of our listeners, do you want to just give us a quick background on who you are?
Yeah. No, I'm excited to be here. My name's Nick Boscia. So I took over our family firm that's been around since 1975. It's Boscia and Boscia PC, located in New Jersey. Our dad started it, and me and my brother are partners, and we've been growing it. So it's been a long journey, but I'm excited to talk about it.
Awesome. So an accounting in the family. Tell us a little bit about what got you into accounting. Obviously, it's a family thing, it seems, but what was the real passion for getting into accounting? And tell us a little bit about your early days when you first got into accounting.
Yeah. So obviously my dad was an accountant. So growing up, he was always working all the time, and I knew he was an accountant. So in high school, when I had the opportunity to take an elective, I took an accounting course, and I thought it was extremely easy, and everyone seemed to find the class really difficult. So I'm like, I knew I had a knack for it. So I'm like, all right, let me go down this path. I always loved numbers. I don't really like reading and writing. So I was like, I need definite, concrete, yes or no answers. So I love working with numbers. And then I went to Penn State, got my master's in accounting, and then shortly after worked for PwC, got my CPA license. And then in 2013, I started with my dad and my brother at our firms.
Excellent. So you worked there and he retired in 2018, and then you took over the firm. Do you want to tell us a little bit about just what it was like working in a family business for 5 years? Did you always know that you were going to take it over, or what was the plan there?
Yeah, so I actually at first I didn't want to take it over. I wanted to just do my own thing, and that's why I went the Big Four route. I went to PwC. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to make my own way and not work with my dad because he's kind of old school, set in his ways type of guy. But when my older brother joined my dad, my brother's really into networking and sales, so he was just bringing tons of clients in, and then they started getting bogged down because he was bringing in so much business, and my dad was like, I need you to come work with us. And I was kind of giving pushback. I'm like, I'm making more money at PwC. I don't want to work with you. And then he essentially swayed me to come work with the family firm. And that's kind of how it started.
Yeah, awesome. And you've had great growth since you've taken over the firm in 2019 to now. You've had, in essence, 118% growth. It's been a roller coaster up and down of growth. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But what was it like when you first took the firm over in 2019?
So it was definitely a little nerve-wracking because my dad started the firm in 1975, so he was here for like 40 years. And then when he left, it's kind of nerve-wracking, like all the clients who've been around coming to our firm longer than I've even been alive. It's like, oh, are they still going to trust me? Are they going to want to work with us? So it was nerve-wracking, but it was also really exciting because anyone who's worked with maybe an old school accountant, they don't really like changing their ways and don't like changing their systems. And I'm like really tech forward and I love trying new things. So I was finally able to make big changes. And it took a little, even when it was just me and my brother with my dad out of the picture, it was still a little bit tough because my brother was a little bit more old school and he's like, hey, our systems works right now. Let's not change too much. So we had to kind of change in incremental steps. So like as we go through the years, like I implemented the first thing was like SmartVault. So because we had no document management system, we had paper files for our clients. So even in 2018, we had paper files, which is crazy, but that's just the firm that we had. So implementing SmartVault was definitely like our first step, and that like completely changed and allowed us like double our client base. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so when you started, obviously the firm had been around a long time, but the revenue was only around that 596,000 mark, and you had 3 team members. Does that 3 team members include you and your brother?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's 3 of you.
In 2019, it was just me and my brother, and that was actually our first full-time hire. So before that, we only had interns.
Yeah, awesome. So
Yeah.
obviously over the next 12 months, you grew your revenue by about 4.5%. So it grew slowly. But what was it like taking over the firm? Because obviously the firm had been established a long time, had grown to that revenue, but hadn't been significant growth over a long period of time. So what was
Um,
that real between 19 and 20? That small amount of growth, but what were you really thinking about? Because obviously the pandemic and COVID happened during that time as well.
yeah. So that was tough because we were like our timing was actually perfect because in 2019 we implemented Smart Vault, started telling clients, hey, upload your documents to our secure portal rather than coming and dropping it off. So we were serving, let's say at the time, I'm in a ballpark because I don't really remember. Let's just say we had 900 clients. But when you have 50% or more coming in with paper, there's only so much we could do with a small team. We're scanning the documents, going through their paper. We didn't have like effective communication, effective way to get their documents. So once we implemented that, clients weren't on board right away in 2019. But 2020 happened and now COVID happens. So it's kind of perfect timing for our firm that clients were like, how are we? Everyone was freaking out, obviously, naturally. And they didn't know how, a lot of accounting firms didn't know how to get documents because people were afraid to even get physical documents. We're like, oh, well, we have Smart Vault that we implemented last year, but you don't want to use it. So now in 2020, they were all willing to use Smart Vault. So we got, I would say 50+% of our clients started using the system. So it was just an efficiency gain. As we were getting more clients, because a lot of firms were closing that year. People are like, I'm scared and things like that. So they're just retiring early. So we were inheriting clients that way, but we were getting super busy because now clients are calling with COVID questions about stimulus and PPP. So we weren't ready for that influx. So that was kind of a struggle because we didn't know how to answer all their questions. We're getting all these calls all the time. And at this point, our firm is taking free calls. So we were just getting completely bogged down. I was working. That was the most I've ever worked. Like I didn't take a day off because that was the year tax season got extended. So I really didn't take a day off until like August because that extended till what was it, July 15th that year. Oh, it was tough, but
You got through it. And that's probably a big catalyst for the next year. Then you had a 44% year on year growth. So you surged from 623,000 up to 900,000, but you only increased your staffing by one. So tell us a little bit about what were the big things that you did between that growth? Because that's pretty significant growth, 44% growth in a year.
yeah. So we just started realizing that using the technology was the only way to really scale efficiently. So we knew we kept getting clients and accounts. Just I think since COVID, accounts just been retiring faster and faster. So we're constantly getting new business. We're doing things like social media and mailers locally because we're primarily a local firm that has changed over time. But we were just constantly getting in new clients. So we're now everyone using Smart Vault and using our systems. We were just getting a lot more efficient, and we just were raising our fees because we're like we were definitely under the market by far. So that's how we grew by volume, but we raised our fees across the board, minimally, like a few percent, 5% maybe. So that definitely added to the growth, but then adding on a lot of new clients that year. So some things that we did that added to efficiency was like we used tax organizers. We used Lacert for our tax software. So we actually uploaded all our tax organizers directly into Smart Vault, and now clients could go right to their organizer and see what they provided last year. Where that was another inefficiency. We had clients every year like, hey, what documents do I have to give you again? And we would have to look at the return and kind of explain it to them. And now the organizer just completely solved that issue. So it's like so many like little inefficiencies we had just with communication, getting information to clients. Those were starting to dwindle. So we had a lot more time to add on more clients and get more done, more like productive revenue work done.
And obviously, through that pretty significant growth, were you actually working on the business, or were these changes you're making more just out of frustration, or was it strategic? You had a rhythm of strategy, I suppose, where you're implementing these, or was it more just you were buried and you're just trying to find efficiencies along the way?
I think it was a little bit of both. I definitely was like, once I started using tools and I'm like realizing how much better it made my life. And it was also the one thing I love about technology. It's like a win-win-win. It's like it's good for the business, it's good for the client, and it's good for the team. So like everyone really wins. So I'm like, I have to do as much of this as possible, but it was a bit stressful because it's like I felt like I had to implement it, and I was also busy doing all the work. So like I was doing it mostly out of frustration. I'm like, how could I solve some of my pain points? But then I was like, if I spend more time working on the business, that's what's going to really help the business grow. And I don't really like at that point in my career, like I wasn't really there yet. I was like just starting to understand how important it was. We're like now I'm like full force on it, implementing as much as I can, changing processes, and it has become exponential growth.
Yeah, so from 21 to 22, you had really no growth at all. It was a pretty flat year, but you obviously went up an employee. What were the main, like, what was the main reason for flatlining the growth? Because you'd had obviously small growth when you took the firm over, then you had pretty significant growth, then you've flatlined completely. What was the real thinking around? Were you trying to slow it down? Was it just you implementing too many things, or what really happened that year?
Yeah. So what we did, we always build after the fact. So we would do clients' returns and then bill them. And then the reason we had such significant growth is we're way under market price. So we raised a lot of fees. And I kind of knew it was going to happen. But what happened is our revenue went up. But it's like, let's say you're a client and it's April 10th, we're sending you your bill. I felt like clients felt kind of trapped, which I didn't really love. They're like, hey, our fee went up, let's say $200. Well, taxes are due in 5 days, so you're going to pay it. And then maybe next year, like I'm going to go find another accountant. So, which I didn't love that, but I'm like, we had to make some change because our prices were too low. So that's why our income shot up. And then the next year, we were able to make that same revenue with less clients. So we had a better year. So even our revenue flatlined, we had a much I would say we had a much better client base. So now we were more efficient. We're not working the crazy tax season hours, and even like the teams like having a much better experience. I'm pretty sure. I know I took some notes. I think that was the year we started taking um, summer Fridays. Yeah, like we were basically my goal was to make sure that the team wasn't getting burnt out, because that really is what kills, especially a small farm like ours. Like if you lose an employee that has like a lot of knowledge and they know your processes and you burn them out and then they leave, it's like now you have to kind of start over again. So like my main goal wasn't revenue. My main goal was making a good team and having a good work environment. That was more of my concern.
And did you strategically then look at your client base and cold clients, or did it just naturally sort of happen that way that your average fees went up and the ones that weren't in that boat left?
I think we did it. I don't know how many clients we were doing that year, but we definitely had a lot of clients. So we would make changes and not really track like who was staying and who was going. But all that we knew is the clients who were staying were the clients we wanted. And the clients who were going were the clients we really didn't want. So not that we didn't want, you don't want to not serve all clients, but you just realize, I think that's like a common misconception of a lot of accounting firms. They want to make everyone happy. And then the person who ends up unhappy is the accountant and their team, because you want to make everyone happy, but it's just not really feasible. Like some people are just difficult to deal with. Some people are very price sensitive. So you just can't serve them all. So like getting over that, I think there was more of a psychological thing. Cause like my dad always built on take every client, charge really low prices, and you're doing like a great deed. But I'm like, that's not scalable. And it's really burned your team out and myself.
Yeah. Did you start to, like, I know that you deal with some niches now, but when did you really start to implement that? Was that during that phase, or is it more in the later years
I think
since?
in the later years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So then you obviously went through, and so you started at 596 revenue, you've got up to 900,000, you've flatlined, but the next year you really had significant growth again, and you got through the seven-figure mark. Went from 900,000 revenue to 1.2, which is ultimately a 33% growth in that year, which is significant again. So
Yeah.
was it the lead up work you did the year before when it was flat that got you to that? Or what were the main triggers that, 33% growth in a year is significant and punching through the seven figures? Tell us a little bit about what happened over that 12 months.
Yeah, so definitely growing the team, because I think I went from 4 to 7. I think, yeah, yeah, 5 to 7 employees. So like adding two more team members on is huge, because you start realizing we used to do everything ourselves. It was really just a team of 3 when I first started. It was me, my brother, my dad. You did everything. And then you start realizing, like, when you add team members on, like, now I had more time to specialize on what I'm best at. And other team members get to do the things that they like to do or that they're good at. So growing the team is huge. And that's the only way to add on clients, because we were starting to realize that we're turning away clients because we're too busy. So the worst thing is, like, a new client calls, you're like, oh, well, I'm too busy doing tax returns to even take a new client on. So, like, you knew that the team had to grow. So I need to, like, allocate free time in my own schedule. So, like, even now, like, most of my day I'm doing like onboardings, new client calls, things like that. So that's been like that's been huge. Growing the team and having like a solid team. Like, I feel like our team gets along really well. We're all in office. So, like, we have lunch together every day. So, like, we work as a team, and everyone knows, like, we have one common goal: to serve all the clients, get stuff done accurately, efficiently, get the client, like, we try to make the client's experience as easy as possible. But that wasn't really, like, before we were just trying to get it done. We were just rushing to get things done. And now we had like a really good system to get things done. And a big change that I made was I stopped doing free appointments. So that was a really hard thing to change. And I don't know, a lot of accounts, if you're a client, they'll be like, oh, just call me anytime with questions. And changing that mindset and, like, communicating that to the clients was tough. But what it did, it allowed me to take paid appointments. So now the clients who really needed my time were able to pay me for my time. So I felt valued. And then the clients who were, like, just too lazy to Google search something like that, they didn't book the call because they weren't getting free calls. So that freed up so much of my time. So that was a huge change.
Yeah, excellent. And then, so after another year of huge growth, last year we went through what was probably, compared to most accounting firms, is good, but it was slower compared to you. It's around that 8% growth last year or year on year. So were there any major structural changes? Obviously no growth in team. Were there any major things that you did between 23 and 24?
So between 23 and 24, I think my goal even now and that year was, like, trying to constantly determine which clients are the right fit for us. So I'm, like, still to this day, I'm obsessed with processes, workflow, efficiency. And as our firm kept growing, I'm like, my main concern is making things run smooth. And all of our changes didn't happen. Like, it's not like one year I implemented something and it was perfect. Like, SmartVault took years to catch on. Then we implemented Anchor, which was huge. So I think that was a big thing for changing our processes. But our billing got better because we weren't missing any bills. Before, we were doing, like, a manual billing. So we were tracking clients paying with it on an Excel spreadsheet. It was just like, we didn't have, some of our processes just didn't make sense to scale. So you're hitting capacity constraints because our processes just didn't make any sense. So just changing these systems has been, like, unbelievably rewarding, because now we build in 2023 upfront for the first time. So that was, like, a massive change. And the reason why I loved billing upfront is because we told clients, if you use our billing system, you're going to save us the time, because now they could pay electronically. It QuickBooks reconciles, makes life super easy, but they're just saving us time. And then they have transparency into what they're paying. So now I feel like clients aren't leaving because they're signing, they're understanding what their costs are, they're knowing up front, and then they're agreeing to it. Where I mentioned before, the year we upped our fees a lot, I didn't feel if it didn't feel as good, because you're billing them last minute when they need the service done at that specific time. So we're giving the clients the wiggle room of, hey, the fees not in line with what works for me. Now they could go look for another account before tax season even begins.
So were you always value price billing or pricing in advance, or have you been time based in the past and you shifted that? What's your pricing philosophy?
Yeah, so we never track time. We basically did all of our billing just based off value pricing, based off complexity and, ballpark timing and complexity. So we weren't ever tracking time. And then, sorry, what was your second question?
Well, is that something that your dad did, or is that something that you introduced when you took over the firm, that you don't track time, or is that always you've never done it within the
Yeah.
firm?
Yeah. So we never did it because when I think our firm, most of the firm's existence was my dad, just a solo person. So he wasn't going to track time for himself, even though I understand the concept. But that also, he wouldn't even figure how much time he was spending on a client. So some client that's takes 5 times the time of a client who takes an hour versus 5 hours, he was billing them all the same. So he would just do a flat fee across the board. So we implemented value pricing, like, hey, your return, you have a Schedule C and 3 rentals is a lot more complex than someone with just a W-2. So then we started pricing that way. But in the year that we bumped up to 900,000. That's when we're like, we really need to get our fees in line based off complexity. So that was like a big change. And now we're just fine tuning that, because so that year we changed it. It's like not like we changed every fee perfectly in accordance. We were just doing our best as we were going.
Is there a certain way that you work that out? Like, have you built some internal IP around, well, this is how we price so that, or is it just your brother and you have a feel for it and you can price it based on your experience?
Yeah. So great question. We used to just kind of ballpark it. Then what we did, we built in Lacert, our tax software, you could build out your invoice. So you could put a price in per each schedule. So that's why we were billing after the fact, because now we would do the return and it would calculate the schedule. So we would adjust it slightly each year. So we would never have like massive increases. But then, that didn't solve the problem of I wanted to bill up front. So like now I just with experience, like now I could kind of just do it off a call. So like if I have an initial client call right now, I'll get their last year's return. I'll review it with them, see if there's any major changes in 24, and then I'll give a quote right off the bat, and then go with that from there. And then with our billing system, if something new happens, like an existing client now has a business, now has a rental, I just will shoot them an email like, hey, just so you know, now that you have this extra schedule, it's going to be an additional fee of X. And I send them in the agreement. They literally click approve and it's done. And I rarely have any client have pushback. I feel like when people have a new, more complex situation, they're very understanding. They're like, yeah, that makes sense. Like I've never had any pushback. That's why a lot of accountants don't want to bill up front. They're like, what if they have a business? What if something new happens? Like most clients, I think, are pretty reasonable, like and understanding.
So if you find things or scope creep during doing the job, do you then reprice it, or do you just accept it and deal, I suppose,
Oh, yeah.
cover it in your cost?
Yeah. So like I will reprice it. So like they'll already have their agreement signed. Let's just make up numbers. Let's just say he signed his agreement for paid and already paid $600, and we're working on his return, and now he adds on a new rental. I'll shoot him an email, and based on the complexity, whenever I determine, I'll say, hey, it's going to be an extra $300, and I'll send them the agreement, and they'll approve. I've never had any client say, I never had a client not approve, so I haven't even thought of that workflow yet. But so that's how I've been doing it. And but that's why like implementing Anchor was such a game changer for us, because before, when we had a manual billing system, we used to do so much stuff for free. Because like if I had to do something, and let's just say it's $50 or a quick question or a quick call or a quick extra schedule, it would be too much work for me to send an invoice to collect $50, $100. But now with Anchor, I literally go in, everything's pre-populated. I just hit send and they just click approve and I'm paid. It's like, so that I absolutely love, because it's like now, because the amount of times you would just do free work it adds up, especially when you have a huge client base. So
Yeah, no, I agree. So with the payment, do clients pay you 100% and then you schedule the work, or how's that? So when they pay up front, when does the work then get done after that?
yeah. So like, for example, we do bookkeeping, but for the purpose of the conversation, been primarily just talking about tax. But so like, and especially because we're in tax season, it's very hot topic. But so right now, our process is we send out our agreements in November. So before tax season, we basically tell them you'll lock in your rate from last year with no increase if you pay before January 1st. And then after January 1st, we do a 10% increase. So that took all the administrative time out of billing, answering questions, out of our busy time. And now clients are uploading their documents to SmartVault, and that basically triggers our workflow to start preparing the returns. So we track everyone in Lacert that when they upload returns, and if they aren't paid, our team automatically shoots them an email just saying, hey, just send you a reminder. you haven't paid for your agreement, we don't begin any work until the agreements are signed and paid. So that kind of, so we are billing 100% upfront. Once in a while, like if a client has a unique situation, like if a client has like a fairly complex return and their bill's fairly large, they'll be like, hey, can I just pay half now and half later? Because we're not going to work on it until May. So like sometimes we'll make adjustments for certain clients if it makes sense.
Yeah, great. So when you and your brother got into the firm and took it over, did you have a clear vision of what you wanted the business to stand for versus now? Like, where does the business look in 5 years? And is that vision clearer now that you've obviously gone through some
Yeah.
rapid growth? Yeah, when you first came in, did you have a vision or what's the?
Yeah. Yeah, when I first came in, I didn't really have a vision. I think my dad's vision was just to, make money and serve clients. Like he definitely like dedicated his life to accounting and like serving as many people as possible at really affordable rates. So I appreciate it, but that's kind of later I'm sure we'll get into the Balanced CPA. Like that's kind of what birthed that concept is balancing. I want to make sure I'm enjoying my life as well and not just doing everything to just be working all the time. So my vision at first was just, making money and learning and doing things. And now my vision's to like, I really want to give like a really good service to my clients and just and realizing like certain things I can't serve as many clients, but I want to pick the right client group and give them such a great service that like the best feeling is like, I love when a client gives me like a compliment. They're like, oh my God, especially it's usually a new client. They're like, oh my God, you're so much better than my last account. And they never answered my emails. They don't get back to me. Like that always kills me because I feel bad, you know, that certain people are just getting not the greatest service. So like, I don't know, that's kind of my vision to like make a difference and help people in an efficient way. Like I love being able to explain taxes or someone why they're getting a refund or why they owe money and breaking it down to them so they could understand. Because a lot of times like, oh, my account wouldn't talk to me. It would just say, it is what it is type of deal, you know?
Yeah. So do you see the business going through, like you've had great growth to get to where you are today at 1.3 mil? Do you see that you're going to continue to grow at the rapid rate that you are? Like it's well over 20% year on year. Or do you think that you're getting to a point now where you want to keep the firm? Where's sort of the future looking?
Yeah. I don't know. It's like funny because as I'm living it right now, I don't even know in my head what I think is what I want is to have like almost a steady growth, but focus on just getting constantly like having the right client. Cause like even as we've been adjusting our firm and getting on new clients and some clients are leaving because some clients don't like using the technology and they don't like that our processes are changing. I personally like the clients who say, oh, wow, your process is so efficient. Like that's the client. People always like, who's your favorite client? I'm like the client who likes my system because it's system designed not to just benefit me, it's to benefit everyone. So, but some clients don't see my vision. So it's like almost like maybe I'm not the right fit for you. So I feel like growing in that mindset, like clients who are like, oh my God, I love working Boscia and Boscia. Your makes taxes so easy. Whenever I need to call you, I could get on your calendar, no problem. But they respect my time. Some clients call me, you know, 5 times in a row when I don't answer the phone. I'm like, that's not a great fit for me. So like as I grow the firm, I just kind of want to have the right client base, but I do want to grow the revenue numbers. So we're constantly getting new referrals, which has been awesome. And I just think I don't really know where it's going to go, but like certain things I know I want to do. I want to like become a remote firm, like go at least a hybrid firm, like go hybrid than remote because I love traveling. So I would love to be able to work from anywhere. That'd be pretty cool.
And your profitability during this journey, I know this is a question a lot of our listeners will have. So you've had obviously rapid growth along the line. Has your profitability kept up with the growth or have you sacrificed profit to be able to grow?
No, I would say profitability has increased as well. So it's pretty that's the best part is like I wanna grow and I want the team to make more while I'm making more. Like I don't want to sacrifice like because I'm definitely working hard to change the firm and make it a firm of the future, the modern firm people call it. But I also want the team to enjoy the benefits because I couldn't do without them. So I think that's the symbiotic relationship I want to have. So like I do want to keep growing, but I don't want to do it at expense because I think most of our like my team knows that my goal is I want to travel more and enjoy life. But like right now, we're definitely locking down and working hard, but not crazy hours. We're working maybe like 50 hour tax season. So it's not, and then the summers we take Fridays off. So I want the revenue to go up, but that's not my primary driver.
Yeah, excellent. So the Balanced CPA came into effect. What's that all about? Like, what is the Balanced CPA, and what was the mindset around all of that?
Yeah. So the Balance CPA is like relatively new, but I go to a lot of accounting conferences. I have a lot of friends in the accounting industry, so we're always like networking, sharing ideas, and a lot of my friends are speakers, so they're all out doing their thing. I'm like, I kind of want to like share my story and how I've evolved, because like where I was 10 years ago when I first started is like nothing like my life now, and like I'm excited to share that. Like what drove me to be the balanced CPA is my dad was not balanced. He worked 7 days a week. He worked nights, weekends, holidays, never spent time with the family. So like I never really saw him growing up at all. And to me, that's just not balanced. So I feel like focusing on, family and relationships and friendships and the things you love, it's like, I hate, it's like, it pains me to see like when I talk to other accountants when I'm at a conference and they're like, I'm so stressed out. I've been working a million hours, and like it literally like pains me, because like it's just not worth it. Like it's just not worth killing yourself. And then the accounts who are killing themselves, sometimes the clients are still not appreciating them. So it's like it was a journey to like make people realize that I went through myself. I was burnt out in the beginning, working too much, and I'm like, this isn't the life I want to live. So with the technology and the processes, like now I feel like I'd actually be the balanced CPA. Like I feel like I actually enjoy my life a lot, but like I definitely work hard. That I never want people to think the balanced CPA means like I'm like so zen and I'm never stressed out. That's not the case. Like last week I was super stressed out, but then I rebalance and I'm like, then I'm making sure I'm going to the gym or getting extra rest or things like that, and what you're doing it all for. So
Yeah, and you've had massive growth. Like you've taken over the firm at just under 600,000. You're now at 1.3 in a 5-year period. It's big growth. So I think that's a key message of the Balance CPA. And for anyone that's listening and not watching, you're fit. And I think that's the balance of, most successful people that are able to get through this barrier. And the 500 to a million is the messiest part in firm growth, or it's one of the messy periods. And a lot of firm owners just don't get through it because it's too hard. They have to start stacking on and putting on team. You have to transition from, being a doer to now being a leader.
mhm.
But you got through that period and not only got through it, you're thriving with it, and you've rebalanced as well, which is what I love. What were some of the key triggers to get, from that 600 to 1.2? What do you think were one or two of the big things that just made all of that so much easier?
Yeah, definitely the biggest thing was just hiring. So like in 2019, we had our first full-time employee, and before that was just interns working part-time, so they could only work so much. So we were literally doing everything, and I'm like, and like everyone's like, oh, the taxes are easy. I could do them so much faster. So why? But like, there's only so much I could physically do as one person or two people, me, my partner, my brother. But like, we hired our employee, and then we realized we were able to buy back more time, get new clients, do other things, and then just growing the team from one, or let's say three, to now seven. We could just get so much more done. So like now my time, like I'm so conscious of how I spend my time, and like, am I using my time in the most valuable way? And like what I do most of my day, which actually is something I enjoy. So like I love managing people and I love training. Like I love teaching. So like last week or 2 weeks ago, like I sat with the whole team and I went for like 2 hours, just went through how to like refreshing the team members' minds, like how to prep the tax returns and do things like that. So if I spend more of my time teaching, the team's skill goes up so much. And now it's like, now I have a whole team that's almost like working as if it was me. So it's just multiplying yourself. But also, I love working with the team, but then also the technology. So it's like the technology also makes our workflow so easy. Because if we didn't use the technology and all of our clients came in with paper, I always use this example, if everyone came in and dropped their taxes off, we would only be able to get half the work done. because there's so much inefficiency with paper. Anytime any client doesn't use our workflow, it adds, let's say, 20% more time, but not 20% more value. I'm making up those numbers, but just for frame of reference, like it just, when they use the process, we could get so much more done. But the one client who doesn't want to follow the process, it just makes life so difficult.
Yeah, and I think you can see that in your journey. I mean, you've obviously been implementing, specific process and then technology year on year, and that's been stacking on top of each other to allow you to be where you are today, which is to then rebalance out and have, what seems like a good balance. With your team, what's the team structure at the moment? So there's obviously you and your brother. What are your different roles, and then what are the 7 team members, or what do you all do?
Yeah. So we still have the interns. So the interns are helping with, miscellaneous projects, data entry, things like that. But then we kind of have our team based on like experience they've been here. So the longer they've been here, obviously you'd be a higher, more a reviewer level. So in a nutshell, 2 of our team members are going to be entry level, and they're doing, the data entry, and they're learning as they go, essentially. And then the reviewers on top of them, 2 team members who've been here. It's actually, we have 3 reviewers who are above them, but they'll all, like, the reviewer could also do the data entry and things like that. So the so we're always training down, and that's kind of like what has helped our firm grow so much, is like the mindset of teaching first. So I'm always encouraging the team, instead of fixing someone's issues or just fixing a mistake, you have to show them. And then throughout the year, you learn so much. So some of our team members for this tax season haven't touched a return, and by the end, they'll be like an expert with doing taxes. But that's because they're constantly getting training every single day. So that system works really well. And then me and my brother will do a final review. So there'll be 2 levels of review. Then me or my brother, we split the client base, because that took us a little time to figure out, because it got confusing if I was talking to a client and then they were really Joe's client, and then the information they told me over the phone wouldn't get over to him. So we basically split the client list. And if I onboard a client, I'll work with them moving forward. If he onboards a client, he'll work with them moving forward. So that system's been working, fairly well, and I've been, really happy with it.
So how much are you and your brother responsible for the actual billing? Like how much of it runs without you versus the 2 of your involvement?
What do you mean by the billing? Like,
So from the 1.3 mil rev, how much of that would be done by the team versus you and Joe being involved in having to do some of that, I suppose, revenue?
got it. So for the revenue, I would say but from clients we bring in, is probably split 50-50 between me and my brother. We're brothers, so it makes it different than a lot of other partnerships. So we're kind of like, we're not super in the nitty gritty, but I would say of the workload, like the team does the majority of the work, and I'm only doing a review. Like I don't do any bookkeeping, I don't do any data entry. I'm just doing final review. And even this tax season, like we're early in tax season, so once I review, if I see more complex areas that the team might not know, the first thing I do, instead of what I used to do, I just, example, someone sells a rental property. It's a more complex area. I would just do it myself. Now I'll stop, I'll record it on Loom, and I'll go up and show the team. And the reason I like to record it, so if someone goes, "Oh, I missed it that day," or "I didn't see that video," now they can rewatch it and teach them the more complex areas. So like my job just keeps getting easier, and the team keeps learning more. So it's a win-win, because the team enjoys learning more. Like I feel like most team members want it. I guess you have to determine your team, but people like learning, and they like feeling valuable, and they like feeling like they're growing in their career. And you and I both know in this career, there's so much to learn. It's like I'm still learning. So
So the retention of your team. So how has your retention been over the years? Because obviously you've gone through rapid growth. Have you had significant turnover of your team? Has it been fairly like, is it the same team? What's the journey on that been?
yeah, so I would say our retention's pretty good. Most of the team who has left would be for, sometimes it was because like family reasons, or just one-off odd situations, not because they didn't like the work environment. Um, One thing that did kind of promote me to want to have a remote team is one of our team members needed to be home for like family per reasons, so they needed a remote job, so they left for that reason. So that kind of triggered the idea, like I want to be able to offer that in the future when I'm talking about the 5-year long-term goals. But other than that, I think we have like a really solid team who's been here for, like our newer team members. I think they really enjoy being here. So we'll see how that goes. But having extra team members, I think, is the most important thing, because life happens. So even if you have like a great firm and a great company culture, like sometimes things just don't work out for an employee, and they just have to do something that's best for them. So that's why I think it's always better to have the extra team member rather than to try to be, what's it called when you're trying to like be scarce and overload your team, because if they leave, then it's really tough. So.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate about hiring in advance. So how do you understand your capacity when to hire?
Um, so I guess I don't have like the most with thought out plan, but I kind of like just gauge it by how the team is handling things. So like now we're definitely in a good spot, and I could just tell because like everyone's in like good spirits. Like people are coming in, and we're I don't know how to explain it. It's like if you were here, you would see like the team just no one dreads coming in for tax season. Like everyone's like, oh, like work is just going smooth, processes are going great. So if I felt like the team was bogged down with work, that's when I would be like, all right, I need to hire. So maybe my intuition isn't the best metric for hiring, but it's something that's when you're in the business every day and seeing how things are working. Um, that's kind of how we figured it out. And now it is the biggest team we've ever had. So if we were having this conversation 2 years ago, I might be like, I need more team members. But like right now, our team's doing really good, and I think we're in a good spot, and we're onboarding a lot of new clients. So that kind of like tails into like our processes. Like the reason why I like billing up front is we still have 800 clients who haven't signed their agreements, and still a ton already did. So we're already in like an amazing spot this year, like the best ever. But those 800 clients, if they're all coming back, it would help my workflow if I knew if everyone was coming back. If they don't want to work with us, we encourage clients to let us know, hey, if you found another preparer, let us know, because then we could offboard them in advance rather than find out on March 31st, 800 people are coming in the door, which isn't going to happen. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So what was the one bit of technology out of all the technology you've implemented since you've taken over the firm? What was the one biggest technology that's enabled you to scale 118% growth in 5 years and get to, where you are now at 1.3 from just under 600,000?
It's hard to say because I love all of them so much, but like the one that I think I love the most, it was also very easy to implement, was implementing Smart Vault. I guess I should include Lacert, our tax software, as part of our tech stack, but I'm like, that's like a must have. Getting Smart Vault allowed us to scale because we eliminated paper, which it took years for people to get on Smart Vault and start using the tax organizer and things like that. But if we gain 300 clients this tax season and lose 200, the folder structure auto creates. So it's such an organized way where if we didn't have that, we'd be so unorganized knowing who is the new client, where are their files, things like that. So I think that was one of the huge tools that I absolutely love because of that integration. But and then I would say now the other piece of technology that I really am a huge fan of is Anchor, because the way they made our billing and engagement letters so streamlined. It was the best feeling in November when I sent out 1,800 tax agreements, and like within that first month we basically collected you know a good chunk of our annual revenue in like a month. So that was awesome. And and then which clients really want to work with us and we're ready for them. So the ones who aren't filling it out, we really don't know who's not coming back. So
Yeah, and I think you're a great example, and your brother is too, of young people coming into the industry, starting your own firm and continually evolving and progressing and, growing through a barrier that most people never do. I saw that you've recently bought a new car. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I know that a good mate of mine has a similar car, and he had a real mindset thing around, I can't buy a supercar because what will my clients think, and what will my friends think, and what will other people think? So tell me a little bit about the mindset about buying the car, and what was the driver behind it?
Yeah, it's actually funny because my brother is a huge car guy, so he's like very in the car scene, and I'm not like the biggest car guy, but like I like nice things just like anybody, but cars aren't like I have a Tesla as my daily driver, and I love it because I love technology. But so my brother's like, oh, there's this really good deal because he's friends with the GM at McLaren, and he's like they're trying to sell this McLaren for, really great price. And I love getting deals. That's just like kind of my thing. And I'm like, he's like, there's a great opportunity. And I just feel like when an opportunity comes knocking, you have to take it. So I got this McLaren back in October, and it was awesome because and now it's funny because you talk about the mindset. At the time, I'm like, is it financially responsible to get this car that I really don't need? But I'm like, you know what? I deserve it because I have been working really hard and I have been implementing all this stuff and grinding, which I do love. But I think it's super important, whether it's buying a McLaren for yourself or going on vacation or doing like if you're working really hard and doing great, like you should treat yourself. Cause I feel like that definitely happens to me. Like I know I'm doing awesome. And then I'm like, what's next? What's next? What's next? And I don't enjoy the moments. Like when I got the car, I was like, this is like, I deserve it because I'm working really hard. And I don't think clients see it as almost it's like a respect thing. They're like, well, you're working really hard and I'm trying to add value. I don't think any business owner does well and is successful if they're not adding value. Like the more value you add, the more money you're going to make because you're helping more people. So I don't know. So it's been exciting. I just drove it here today. So even though it's cold out here in New Jersey, but it's always fun to get in that car in the morning.
That's awesome. It's a great mindset. And I think I mean, the Balanced CPA ties into it. You went to Indonesia last year, into Italy, obviously DC. You're starting to balance that, obviously, the mindset of the McLaren. Dan Martell called when he first bought a supercar, the McLaren mindset. And it was all around, he, for years, didn't think he could buy one because he thought, what would other people think? His wife wouldn't go in it when he first bought it. And I think that too many accountants are scared to show the success. And I think that this is something why I asked this question was, I think the more successful we are as firm owners, the more you're going to attract the right type of clients as well, because success grows success. And, it's like financial advice. You don't go to a financial advisor or planner that is poor. You want to go to someone that's successful. And I think that there's some real mindset things around that is showing that. Now, we've gone through obviously your journey and the story, and I think there's been a few key points that have stuck out to me that separate you, that have helped you to get through that. One is you've found a good balance between, working hard, but also having a life. I think that technology and process is evident that you've continually focused on that along the way, and then pricing and making that shift, I think, was a significant journey. So what would be one bit of advice that you give to people that may not have got through that 7 figures yet? What would be that one bit of advice just on your journey that you would recommend? These are the 1 to 2 things that really you wish you did sooner, or you've implemented that just was a game changer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like I would say this every time is talk to talk to other accountants, talk to people who are where you want to be. Because one thing I love about our industry is like most accountants are really great people and they really want to help each other. So like when I go to accounting conferences, I have friends, and one of the tools that I didn't bring up was Financial Sense. I use that for workflow management, but I was so torn. I was implementing all this stuff as I already mentioned, but I have a friend, Dawn Brolin, who some people know. She's pretty well known in the industry, and I'm like, Dawn, I don't know what tool to use for workflow. There's so many out there. Everyone's telling me to use theirs, obviously, and she's like, oh, use Financial Sense. That's what I use. So I implemented that tool, and it's been a game changer because now all my work is tracked. Before, I had to tell the team what to do all the time, and now everything recurs on the schedule it needs to. Everyone knows what clients they need to work on. And it's like before I had a workflow management tool, and now I'm like, oh my God, I actually could take time off when I go on vacation. I come back and there's no work for me because everyone knows what they're doing without reaching out to me. But that was my long-winded way of saying that, talking to people in the industry, because at that time I needed advice on a workflow management tool. But everyone listening is going to be at a different point in their career. The worst thing to do is feel overwhelmed because like, oh, well, Nick Boscia has already done all these things. I can't do that's overwhelming. Just start at the first thing. Like someone's going to help you along their journey because no one just started and had everything picture perfect. Everyone had to go through the difficulties and the setbacks and implementing the wrong technology or hiring the wrong team member. So like, and it makes you feel better when other people like go through the struggle. It's like, oh, your life wasn't picture perfect either, and then it makes you feel better. So that's definitely huge. And I think I always encourage people to reach out to me because I love helping people because it's like I went through it and I tried to figure it out on my own. And my exponential growth didn't happen until I started talking to people like you and people like Dawn and other friends in the industry who've really helped me grow.
Yeah, so we'll put your details in the show notes so people can reach out to you. What's the best social media platform for them to follow you on, and what is that?
Probably my LinkedIn is just Nick Boscia, or then my Instagram is probably the two I use most. My Instagram is just at the Balanced CPA.
Awesome, Nick. It's been so good to hear your journey, 118% growth over 5 years. But I think it's more than the growth. I love that the Balanced CPAs come into it because you've shown that you can grow beyond the 7 figures and balance life and not just be buried in it more and more. And that's, I think, a common misconception. People think as the bigger you grow, the more you're going to be buried in it, which I don't necessarily think is true.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So thanks for being on the show. And yeah, for those that listen today, reach out to Nick. He's a wealth of knowledge and has been through that journey, and continue to watch and evolve. Nick, I'm excited to see where you go in the next 5 years.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on socials so you don't miss the next episode.